Rand Paul has some tough words about the sequester drama. Now, we spoke with Senator Paul a short time ago. Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Hey, Greta, how are you?
I'm very well. Now, Senator, you've been quoted as saying that sequester, if it happens to be a yawn, and you're wondering if anyone, in your words, is going to stand up to the president and call his bluff, in your terms, to the ridiculousness. Explain that.
Well, what we've said all along is that the sequester over 10 years is a cut in the rate of increase. And even over 1 year, where there's a little blip where spending goes down in some departments, there are many ways you could do this without even really losing any jobs. For example, just not rehiring people. When federal workers retire, if you don't hire new workers to replace them, that saves about $6 billion a year. If you were to pay federal employees about the same level you pay private employees, that saves about $32 billion a year. There are other places to cut. You could cut foreign aid in half and save $20 billion. So we have a list of savings that we could send to the president if he's interested, and we could do this without laying anybody off.
All right, and that's your sequester program. I guess it's titled "Sequester Without Layoffs." Is that how you title it?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is something. Go ahead.
In terms of, let me just take one that you mentioned, foreign aid, cutting foreign aid in half to about $20 billion. Have you contemplated, if you want, one step further and determine what foreign aid you would cut off? Because foreign aid has been very effective for us in many parts of the world in achieving certain goals. So I'm curious if you've gone further and identified which foreign aid you'd cut off.
Well, I think there's some argument whether it's been effective. A lot of foreign aid's been stolen over the years. The Mubarak family in Egypt became very wealthy off of our foreign aid. In the end, when people were rioting in the streets and protesting Mubarak's rule and protesting his martial law, he sprayed them with tear gas that he bought with our foreign aid. So I don't think the foreign aid necessarily endeared us to the Egyptians that were rioting against Mubarak. But what I would say is I would start by cutting foreign aid from countries who are burning our flag and chanting death to America, countries that don't really seem to be acting like our allies. But once again, the large bulk of the cuts we're talking about, even larger than foreign aid, would be paying federal workers the same as you pay private workers. If you brought that into parity, you'd save nearly the entire amount that you need for the sequester.
Well, one thing that I don't understand is in all the discussion about sequestration and about where to cut, where not to cut, there's certain things that I just don't understand. For instance, the Department of Labor says that between July 2011 and June 2012, that $4.9 billion in improper unemployment benefits were made. It was unemployment fraud. I mean, why is not the discussion at least identifying these huge pockets of fraud we have in the federal government or waste?
You would think. We have $100 billion that's been said to be in improper payments throughout government. There's thought to be $25 billion worth of improper payments just in the Pentagon. And we haven't audited the Pentagon because they say they're too big to be audited, but this has been going on decade after decade. So what I say is good leadership wouldn't be putting a bunch of policemen behind you and saying, oh, I'm going to let these policemen go, when in fact policemen are paid, 98% of them are paid by local taxes. So I think if we had good leadership in the country, we've known the sequester was coming for a year. Why did we not go ahead and have a freeze where we didn't replace any federal workers? That would have saved $6 billion over the year we've been waiting for the sequester.
Do you have any opposition to the suggestion that we go into sequestration but allow the Obama administration to have the flexibility to move funds around so that they can accommodate certain programs or projects they think are the right ones to pay?
Yeah, if there's a way that the money can be moved around. For example, in the military, they had $5.2 million they spent on goldfish, studying goldfish to see how democratic they were and if we could learn about democracy from goldfish. I would give the president the authority to go ahead and cut off $5 million in goldfish studies. I'd give him the authority to cut off the $1.5 million that was studied to study roll-up beef jerky last year in the Pentagon's budget. So, yes, I would give him more authority if he's willing to use it to cut off some of this nonsense. But I don't really trust a lot of what's going on when I see him putting local firemen and policemen behind him and saying Republicans are going to make them lose their job. The sequester was his idea. He signed it into law. He needs to take responsibility, and he needs to act responsibly. And we've given him a list of cuts that he could do without laying off anybody. So he should talk to us instead of sort of parading these pictures in front of us and trying to imply something that's not true.
All right, and the final question, you gave back 20% of your Senate budget to the Treasury, and you and other senators on both sides of the aisle have done that. You haven't spent your full budget and returned it to the Treasury. Do you think that there's a way to encourage more U.S. senators to do that? Are you guys spending way too much money?
Yes, and I think it's a good example, though, of how I was able to save 18 to 20% of my budget and not lay off anybody. We had a few people who left for other jobs that we didn't replace, but we watch our money wisely. I have a bill that I've introduced into Congress that would give bonuses to civil servants based on them saving money. Right now, at the end of the year, civil servants try to spend all their budget so they get it the next year. What I would tell civil servants are, if you have a $12 million budget and you save $1 million, I'd give you a raise for saving money.
Senator, thank you. Always nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.